Yo, welcome to a live on one. I said that like I would tell someone joining a call very casually. Yo, it's a live on one. My name is Steven, and I'm here tonight with Ben. How you doing?
I'm good, Mr. Steven. Just hanging out in lovely upper New York where it snows still. So, that's not sad.
Hey, it snowed here too, so in New Hampshire. And also here tonight is Jonathan. How you doing, Jen?
That's me, Jonathan Smith III, bringing it at you live.
Okay. I didn't think it was a rap name, more of just like a Caucasian one.
Well, you started with Yo, so I thought we're just adopting personas now.
No, I just forgot what I was doing for a second and realized I was recording a podcast.
Okay, listeners, we are very organized. How are you doing, listeners? We missed you.
How are you? Yeah, how are you?
Let's leave some silence for them to respond. Oh, that's great to hear. I'm glad you're having a great
day. For those who are not doing well, oh, sorry to hear that.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday. And also happy birthday. Cool. So tonight we're going back to kind of our Get Ready to Get Better series. And I completely lost my train of thought. Live on one stories. I was going to say more, but so who's this here?
We're not
sure.
Park.
Okay.
I'm really tired today, by the way. So.
A little bit. It looks like, yeah. Okay. So a live on one story. Yeah, I got to go to a tournament at Highland Games, and it was a really good time. Hosted by Corey Goes by Peabody on the Discord in New Jersey, and I got to play against a cool Spider Bros player named Dan. At one point, Dan was able to start working down my Namor to almost to 1 health. Which then I fell back with him, and he had an extract, and we brought him to the corner of like the map. So because of that, Green Goblin had to go chase him down, and result like Goblin kind of like got way out of place for a bit of part of the last bits of the rounds, and that was good to sort of like keep the points gap for extracts basically. So yeah, that was my live one story. He proceeded to finish him off like very quickly afterwards, but Namor was fast enough that he was able to get back onto the deadly meteor, so it wasn't too bad for him if he needed to.
Nice. Yeah, that was I was following that tournament. I guess like sometimes, when you want to be somewhere and you can't or didn't actually commit. In my case, you're like, oh, I was like texting everyone there at the tournament. Great result, and stuff like that. So I wanted to go. Didn't end up going, but
it was a good time. No, like everybody at that scene was really cool. Like very affable to like it's like communicating like what we're doing and stuff like that. Very clean games overall, and we had like nice good chats after each game. Like it's like, oh yeah, we could have done this or could have done that and stuff like that. So it was nice to see people very reciprocal to talking about the game afterwards, which is like my favorite part about this game sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes we spend 4 hours after games talking late into the night. So. I get it, I guess.
We would know nothing about that.
No, absolutely nothing. But yeah, I definitely like to go back at some point, for sure.
Yeah, cool. And then Jen, keep on rolling, because you have the hobby catch up.
I actually painted a model, guys. I did it. I finally did it.
I'm going into cardiac arrest a little bit.
Yep. Are you looking for pigs flying out of your window right now?
Can you repeat that one more time, though?
Jonathan, was able to paint a model for my league.
Good job, Jen.
Thank you. I painted one Black Widow Age of S.H.I.E.L.D. to tabletop readiness. So she is. Oh,
no highlights though.
No, I'm still really bad at highlights. This is why I commissioned actual painters.
I will tell you one thing: it takes a really long time to get like even okay at edge highlighting. So, unless you buy Tau models, because you can get really good at it very quickly if you're doing squares. But nice, Jen. Proud of you.
Have you made a dent in your 40K armies or anything?
No,
okay.
It's pretty bad actually. Thank you for bringing it up.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, I actually haven't painted in like a week and a half, which is a long time for me. So, um, I just been, I don't know, it got nice out. That's actually what happened, I think. So I just started like hiking more, which I do, quite a bit of during the fall, spring, summer. So, um, yeah, but I'm going to an AOS tournament this weekend, and that leads me to a segue about upcoming events. So, upcoming MCP events. All right, I'll just start hammering these off. So, we got Red Seal Games on 2 days from now, since this will be released on Thursday morning. That'll be the Saturday 425, and Matawan. It's an affiliation battle. Jin, you are going to that, I believe.
Yep, I will.
Nice. And then the next one, the weekend after, on the Saturday, May 2nd, up in Maine with Stephen Maddox and me. I will be there playing MCP in a tournament setting for the first time in 4 months. So, but that's a Timelines tournament, so that should be a good time.
With the Timelines champion, Stephen Maddox, right?
Yeah, and I actually won that. He does this every year when he comes back from Adepticon, and I won the last one for the local, so I got to defend the Stephen title. So,
Yep. Yeah, if I'm not too tired, I would love to make it up. So I'll put it as a to be determined for that one as well for me.
Okay, so
is
if
it
you're
like
not there,
Yu-Gi-Oh, where you can like steal his trophy, like if you do really well? Is that how that
no,
works?
that's not how that worked last year. So
No. Right. Offering suggestions.
Those trophies are beautiful, though. So congrats to Maddox on having 2 of them now. So the weekend after that, on the Sunday, May 17th, there's possibly a Battle Standard tournament going on.
Yeah, I need to get the event approved, but I'm just going to shoot for that Sunday on 5/17 to do a standard 3-round event with chess clocks. So if you guys are interested, keep your eyes out. I'll have a link up soon when I have it available.
Yes, and I will probably be at that. I will make a point to go to that one, Jen. So
Sweet.
if it happens that weekend, if it doesn't happen that weekend, all bets are off.
Okay.
Well, I start school on the
Yeah.
I start school on the 18th, so I can like make the 17th work, or restart school, I guess. And then Midgard Games in Derry, Brian Watson's throwing a party on 5/23. Bring 12 characters, ban 2. I don't think there's anything more to that, right?
Yeah, I believe the rules is you're not able to ban no leaders. You can't just ban your leaders so they have no leadership. Okay, so
I see Dormammu in there. I ban him.
It's like, you got me, dang.
The old well, you won't have that problem if you bring 10 leaders. So
loophole.
I will say I've gone to events like that and I have brought lists of 10 leaders. So
all 3 Steves.
and just was like, oh, looks like you can't ban any of my characters. Whoopsie.
That seems like not in good sports spirit of the game, but
it's really funny though. The list is terrible, but so it works out because the list is bad, but it's funny.
True. I guess you could make it work with. Now I'm thinking of ways to make it work. This is a bad.
You're welcome. You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
And then that same day in Syracuse, something closer to you, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of like 6 hours, this one's only like 2 hours away. So,
it's local.
So it's local. Yeah, we are having an affiliation battle in Syracuse at the Comic Zone, and we're playing for the acrylic Magneto card. So, if you want a cool acrylic Magneto card, come fight me for it. Which Jin is going to do. So I plan on taking him out in the knees in the parking lot. So
okay, that's fine. I'm just going to like cut your knee attendance from there.
There you go.
Jin, you might have a problem, man. I'm just realizing how much you travel for these tournaments.
I like seeing people. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we'll go with.
But cool. I didn't know you were going up there for that. It's really cool. And those are all events that I know about, or we know about. So, yeah. So without further ado, okay. Crap. Timestamp. People love this thing. So I'm just going to talk for like 9 more seconds to make the timestamp even. So bear with me. Boop, 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 boop.
You better not cut any of that. They better stay in the.
Oh, I don't. Yeah.
No,
Fuck
there's
that.
no cutting here, Ben.
Well, now we're not even, so we need another whole minute. All right. So tonight's topic, we're going to talk, in our continuing kind of series about, and I think it's a good time for it too, because we're kind of in, if you haven't noticed, we're a little bit in a MCP lull till we kind of wait for the rules changes to happen. I mean, there's still stuff going on and things like that, but like, it does feel like impending doom, not really knowing what's going to happen and like committing to anything. At least I feel that way. And so in our continuing kind of like, how do you get better as a player? Like, what are some suggestions? We're going to talk tonight about kind of evaluating still turn zero, because there is a lot to talk about, a lot of different topics to talk about on turn zero. Probably in this series of like get ready to get better, we'll probably be talking turn zero for at least like 2 or 3 more episodes. So there's just a lot there. The turn zero is like hugely important in MCP, I think. But tonight we'll be talking a little bit about just evaluating crisis selection, and of course these will all also end up tying in to deployment thematics and things like that, and like character selection, because like they all kind of go together at a certain point. But so Jin, since you've already also done some content on this, you want to like start us off?
Yeah, so there's a few different metrics, right, that you can go off of, like your evaluating crisis, right? So yes, we have our current War of Kings, like current rotation, right? And soon there'll be a zero tolerance, like rotation. We presumably that'll happen. So rather than us like talking about like it's like, oh, how's riots, how's Infinity Formula, for your specific team, we should probably start thinking about things more like abstractly, right? As far as like it's like, hey, what is happening during this crisis shape? And you can evaluate any different shapes that AMG comes up with and the different ways they score, and sort of like from there drill down like if this actually makes sense for your team or not, right? So I think that'll be good, because then you're not just like it's like, oh well, I just have these notes for riots, but how do you apply like the things you like about or you don't like about riots, into new crises that come up, right? And be like, it's like, oh, okay, does this make sense for my team or not? So that's kind of what I was thinking, is that like we like to have our listeners think about the crisis more abstractly so they can be more objective when evaluating if it's something's good or not for their team. Because a lot of times newer players will come up to me and just, oh, I just threw this in my list. Does it make sense? It's like, oh, okay, well, I start asking you questions about, it's like, okay, what is your team doing? Like why do you like to play your team? Are you trying to play a fast game or a slow game? That sort of stuff. And that all comes together, like, as far as like what crisis you should lean on, right? For your roster selection. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Does that make sense, Stephen?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. And I think we've all been, I want to say too, before we like continue on this topic, like we've all been new players, right? And we've all had times where we're just throwing crisis in because like we think, like I remember, I was like, oh, I think I first started with like Cabal way back when. And I think I was like, oh, this looks like easy to move, between, not really knowing that you want tight maps or something like that, right? So we've all been there. And I do think even for like veteran players, like maybe there's some stuff here too that like you might like have forgotten, right? So like I really like the idea too of just talking generally speaking, because like I know that at least for my own mind, like when I'm trying to get better at this game, I tend to like really need like generalist things that can apply to every game rather than specific scenarios. Just because like that's more helpful for me to like make a list of things to like check off in a box when I'm like playing an MCP game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so rather than us giving you an evaluation of the crisis, like we should tell you how do you evaluate a crisis, right?
Right.
And I think that'd be much useful for our listeners in this lull period.
Yeah, and that'll also be like a useful tool because we're about to get a new rotation. So like maybe while you're list building in June, you can like keep some of these questions in mind when you're like just like starting to crank out lists. Because I know if it's true for me that like I'm gonna have like 5 to 10 lists that I just like randomly start making on different affiliations because of the amount of changes that AMG said that they're going to do. There's going to be a lot of room for like really thinking about like crisis selection, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think what's really important too, and I think we've talked about this in a couple settings, is not only recognizing what the affiliation that you're playing and kind of what their preferred crisis, shapes are. But I think there's something to say about what do you as the individual player prefer as well. I think that's a really important part of the conversation, is recognizing I prefer these types of secures, right? I prefer these types of extracts. So then it kind of also helps guide you into maybe what affiliation you want to play. Is this affiliation, am I playing this extra hard mode, taking all these Kingpin friendly, secures, but I'm playing X-Men, right? Rather than playing, pay to flips. Well, maybe you need to try a different affiliation than trying to play X-Men on just, standing secures and things like that. But there's something to say of what do you as the individual player prefer as well, and trying to find that sweet spot. And I think that's, for me, one of the more exciting things going into June. As a individual who has what we lovingly call affiliation ADD, it gives me a lot of freedom to try all this different stuff. But astute listeners will know that I have often, in most lists that I play, some similarities with my crisis selections, because these are the ones I can understand and play well. And so I try to lean on that more often than not, rather than crisis selections or shapes that the affiliation is good at, but I don't maybe necessarily understand, or I don't play with. There's a reason why I don't play webs. One, because they're the bad guys of the story. And two, rotating crisis are a little bit more difficult for me to wrap my brain around. So I think that's really important as you continue to go into this new sphere of the MCP world being, shaken and trying different things. I think now is a really cool time to start trying to hash that out.
So when eventually all your crises just rotated away, Ben, what are you going to do? You will have no home.
That's where Jen and I play until 4:00 in the morning, trying to find my new home. Where do I live now? And trying to convince people that Demons Downtown is actually back and part of the rotation. So, no, Demons Downtown is totally legal. What are you talking about?
Isn't Demons legal in Timelines? I believe it is.
Yes. Timelines is a Wild West, so I would believe it.
Yeah, but no, good point. Like, because there's also like the reverse way you can do a lot of this, and I don't think either way is like inherently incorrect. Like, I think some people start with, some people start with like the affiliation and they fit like crises into. We haven't talked about why though. So like I keep skating, like I feel like we're all skating around like, well, what makes a crisis good, right? So like I think we should start with talking about shapes, right? Like specific shapes. Man, it's really hard to generalize this topic. I'm like sitting here.
Here's the thing. Like, we're not going to know what the shapes are, right? Like, we know two of the shapes, right? In the Sentinels pack. Like,
we've got two. Yep.
For two of the extracts and two of the secures, right?
What I meant more when I wrote this down was like, so let's take the current existing ones as examples, not like talk about how to play them, but like you have things like, there's some general concepts here, right? Like you have tighter maps, you have wider maps, which involve more rotation. You have like, at least right now, you have like things that kind of set up like double E's, and then you have like pay to flips, and then it's basically like tighter maps, wider maps, and rotation maps. When you kind of boil it down to it, there's like three-ish, shapes, right? So I don't think that's necessarily going to go away. Like, right, if the secures are close together, it's a tighter map, right? If they're wider apart, it's a wider map where you're going to have some form of rotation at some point in the game.
So I like to sort of think about them in terms of like, if you were to just like put all the, let's talk about secures for a second, right? So if all the secures, are just like one move action away from like a standard, like small move, like medium base model, right? Or sorry, small base, medium move model. That would be a pretty tight secure, right? As far as like being close to, able to like get to one point easily, you're not going to be able to run away very much, right? Versus like, let's say like the B shape, right? The Infinity Formula Mutant Madman shape currently. where it's like, okay, there's one flank that you can go to one or two, but to get to another side, the other like set of them requires a lot of like movement investment, right, to get to that other side. And that would be something I would consider like quite a wide shape, for instance.
Or a D map too.
Yeah, D map is also interesting because it's like I think actually, in my opinion, that B shape, the two like really distant flanks, is much harder to rotate on, right? Versus like a D shape, even though like it seems like the diamond's far apart, but you kind of like do a clockwise or counterclockwise rotation. On those,
our proclivities are coming out here a little for certain missions, as Ben was talking about.
Yeah. That's quite telling.
I'm not biased for long movers at all. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah. Wall crawling, long movers. Yeah.
But no, I mean, to be fair, like that's completely like correct. I do think like D maps and B maps share some similarities. Like, yeah, to go from one side of the board, I think I haven't measured it out. I probably should do that, to be honest. But I do think like one side of the B is farther away than like a rotational D.
Right.
It definitely is.
So for instance, like for you to go from like one of the Bs, right, to the across to the other side, it would take you more than two like small base medium moves like to get there. Even if you were the most inside that you can be contesting before you start moving. So
yeah. Well, that explains the reason why I bring some characters I do.
Right, exactly. Then you need either long movers, right, or you need larger bases with that same movement, or you need like additional placement effects
or pushes. Yeah.
Or like a spender, right, that you can attack somebody and also move, or in some way as well. You can have Wolverine who serves some people to rotate on points. So
bringing Wolverine is always a good time.
Yeah,
unless
exactly.
he dies.
Unless he dies.
Yes. Unless he dies.
But yeah, no. Oh, sorry, Jen. Go. You continue.
No. I mean, like, so, like, when you think about that investment, right, versus like each of the D shapes, like, okay, going across to it from one D to another D, like, so the one that's close to each player's like deployment zone. That's not too bad because I think if you start on the inside of that diamond, I think 2 move actions should get you there. I want to say.
If you're a large base on the inside, does 1 L move get you there?
I think potentially yes. So, but
who has a large base with an L move though? I can't even think of a character that does that.
Well,
Nimrod does with his cool tactic card.
Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I was thinking if you play the Initiate on a large base model and then shield mobile them, I guess that's something you can do as well.
Okay. But no one inherently has that right in the game, for sure.
No, there's currently no large base long movement.
For good reason.
Probably because that model would be a little fast. Okay, anyway.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, crisis shapes. So start thinking about, I guess, for at least for secures, in my opinion, right, is like how much movement investment does it take you to get from one point to another, right? And that sort of determines like how close like the maps is. And presumably, which if you guys would agree, something that takes very little movement, right, to get from one point to another is something I would consider very good for fighting teams, right? Because that means the less actions you're spending moving, the more you can attack more, right? Or also, if you have long range attacks, you possibly don't even need to move at all, right? To touch one person on one security to another, right?
Yes. No, that's correct.
Yep. I mean, does Ben disagree? I don't know.
No, I agree. It's all I hear is web tech when you
I am literally talking about fighting teams, Ben.
I know, but when I hear you like talk about those types of shenanigans, I just think of like, or if you could just like stay put and just kill stuff. That's fine.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes when I talk, listeners, like Ben just hears flip.
Yeah, instead of the Charlie Brown womp 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 womp, it's just flip.
You hear like Miles womp 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 womp.
I understand, listeners. This is very difficult for podcast conversations. We're going to do our best here.
Yeah. No, but I mean, despite Ben's like aversion to playing the game correctly,
love you too.
Like I think like again, like some of the things we talked about in last episode come to play here, right? Like wider because of the nature of because of the game design. To be honest, this isn't like anyone's fault, but like the well, I don't know why I said that, but like the web's characters are designed to rotate, right? They're and then like I don't know, Blue Marvel's designed to try to double tap. So like the kind of intention of the character kind of dictates the closeness of the secures, at least, that you kind of like want to be relevant on, right, or play on.
Right. Yeah. So like if you're trying to pick like your defenders models, right? Like Tigra is like a great character that can like if the map is wide, it's like, oh, you can change your location on the board like relatively easily, right? And be where like the actual like conflicts and points of contention are happening where you actually can get more points. Versus like if Blue Marvel's on a B map, unless he has something to assist him like, Doctor Strange's portals, he has to really kind of be stuck in, right? In one flank and just kind of stay there, right? Which can be dangerous because if they get ahead on points via extracts or whatnot, and they rotate away from Blue Marvel, then Blue Marvel's effectiveness can be very hampered, right? And maybe that will be something you have to consider when building a squad for that crisis.
Yeah, and actually, well, we're kind of talking about this too. I think we should even like roll it back a little bit, because like this might be for newer players or whatever, but maybe a reminder to even experienced players. So like this game, like the stack, right? Like what I call it the stack. Like it's a secure and an extract on top, right? You can learn a lot of information from that. Like just before you even pick your squad, you can learn a lot of information about like kind of where things are going to go, the action's going to be, and like this game's kind of designed in a way where like that stuff like really matters, right? Because like I don't know where I'm going with this, but like what I'm saying, Jim. Translate, please.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So if we want to just dial back for a second, we can also talk about, in addition to the shape and distance, right, from Crisis, you should also think about like how many Crisis are on the board and how much they're each worth, right? So, for instance, like if you are playing on like, let's say Spider Infected, right, where there's 5 extracts that you can't stack, right? That probably means that you can't take a team that's only like 3 people wide, because if that's the case, then you might have a rough time trying to keep up with the game scenario wise, especially if like that 5 points of extracts is also paired up with like 4 secure points that are active right at the same time. So like thinking about like how live is the game as far as scoring goes is something that you want to consider, for instance, right, for your roster flexibility or simply down to your squad selection.
Yeah, and go ahead, Ben.
Well, I think to your point, when you're looking across the table and seeing, what the opponent's crisis selection is, it might tip their hand to what they're trying to do. I think is kind of also what you're trying to suggest there, Stephen, and so that can help influence some of your own decisions, right? As you're thinking about what you're trying to do, and we'll get later to character selection, but it all matters when you're looking at what is it that my opponent is trying to do. So I think there's some wisdom in trying to pay attention to that, right? So,
yeah, and even to add on to that too, like I think from turn 0, you can kind of look at a board and kind of understand where you're going to need to throw attacks in, like, or where you're going to need to chase or things like that, because the extracts say a lot about how the actual attrition action is going to like occur, to a certain extent. You can't like exactly predict it, but say like what's a good one right now? The one down the middle, right? The 3 down the middle that I'm blanking on the name. Yeah, Montesi, like right, like you either like plan on trying to bring a safe grab, or like if that person's in the middle, you're gonna have to push some sort of pressure there, right? So that's just an example. Like every shape has like a different kind of variety of that, but like to a certain extent, especially when there's an odd amount of extracts, like your game plan turn 0 should be like thinking a little bit more about like, okay, I use odd because that means there can be an inherent scoring advantage, right? Where you can kind of be the passive player versus the active player, right? So like you can get all that from like looking at just a like stack layout. You can't do that from just like an extract or a secure, but like when both are on the table, you can kind of start making those kind of predictions.
Yeah. So to sort of reverse engineer, right, back to like the crisis selection, I think another concept that we should like for one of the baselines for a lot of our crisis selection is going to be like how fast do you want the game to score, right?
Mm.
So within your own affiliation, like you need to suss up very quickly. It's like, hey, the three most generic things we can categorize, right, is that it's like, hey, is this a very scory team? Therefore, you want a lot of live points, right? You have an attrition team that maybe wants to slow the game down, right? Because they have more opportunities to interact by attacking the opponent and then eventually take away activations and slowly grind out a game that way, either by tabling opponent or by just winning by points, but in a slower fashion. Or you have something more mid-range where it's like, hey, I would like this game to be very even scoring, and it's going to be a lot of selective like zones of conflict and interactions and attacks to eventually eke out a win. So for
I think, Jin, we call that like a swing turn, basically. You're
yeah,
like setting up swing turns in a mid-range team, I think.
that's what you guys call it. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. No pun intended here.
Wait, what? I think
Swing
that
turn,
all
web
just went
warrior.
over my head.
I think you want to call that a whip swing turn, sir.
Nope.
Oh, no.
Nope.
No, okay,
But
all right.
no, you can do that with attrition teams too. Like you can set up for swing turns, but yeah. Anyway.
A lot of teams will usually have some sort of like very some way to basically like use power tactics cards in a way that would be a big turn.
Yeah.
So to win a game of Crisis Protocol, right, you need to get 16 points to win normally, right? Tabling
Wait,
happens.
what?
Yes.
Wait, I'm listening to a podcast? Wow.
Sorry. Yes, I know this is a shock to Ben, folks. Like,
Wait, tabling your opponent isn't the way you win?
That's not how you normally win the game? That's weird.
So you're trying to get the 16 points, right? So you're trying to figure out how you get to those 16, right? So like in a very normal pace like game, like let's say I would consider like 4 points for extracts, 4 points for secures, right? Like an 8-point live points of that are on the field in total is like a very fair game, right? So like if both players like did their best to get parity on both things, right? You get to 16 in basically 4 turns or 4 rounds, right?
Yeah.
And I think currently with our current crisis set, like I think generally like around 4, round 5 win is like probably pretty normal, like most of the time statistically, right now.
That's I believe that's actually correct from someone. Someone did some like data digging, and I think that was what they found. So, yep.
Yeah. So basically, like you basically ask yourself, okay, it's like, is the affiliation and the squads that I want to make are trying to hit that 4 points around, or do we want something faster than that, or do you want something a little slower than that, right? So that can kind of like dictate like what kind of crisis that you actually want, right? And we can evaluate different affiliations. I think each affiliation tends to lean towards a specific like mode, for instance. So like when we talked about X-Men, we definitely like put them in that spectrum with Simon, right? When we talked about like this is a relatively mid-range team to score a team, right? Depending if you're doing a Storm or a Cyclops or a Professor X like setup. And from there, like they can sort of like drill down like what characters they want. And one of the things we can talk about immediately is just like, hey, how many points do we want on the board? And I don't think any X-Men team would, for instance, want to take Montesi Formula, Alien Ship, or Deadly Legacy Virus because like it's just very low scoring, extract wise, right? For instance. So that's something you can immediately first think about. It's like, okay, how fast do I want this game to go? And that's gonna really help like narrow down like which crises are like more viable for you than others, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're doing like mono dorm or whatever, you're like, okay, what is my game plan here, right? Most likely with dorm, it's like I want hammers and I want to murder. Like I want to have hammers on the board and I also want to murder. So
stackability, right? I don't know if there's going to be stackable extracts or not in the new crisis, but let's say they stick around, right? Having large models like Dormammu, right? Like you love stackable extracts, right? Like cubes, hammers, Deadly Legacy Virus. You're just like, great. I'm happy to just like put all these on this one big model that you now have to interact with to try to get points, right?
Or even to some extent, you said Legacy Virus. Never mind. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if you want the Dorm to KO, but I guess if it wins the game, sure.
Yeah. I won a tournament from my APOC KOing assembling the virus, so it does happen.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's I think it's interesting. One of the things when I try to go into a competitive tournament is what's my answer to Kingpin? I think it's always an important question to ask, because this is the potato squad, right? How do I deal with a affiliation that just wants to have as many sit on points, I count as 2, and we play this game till round 3, then the game's over, right? So when you're list constructing, having that thought process, is this a team that I want to do the same thing? Am I an Asgard, affiliation, or an X-Men that has a plethora of turn 1, power that allows me to interact with an extract and a secure, all those types of things are really important questions to ask, I think, right out of the gate. So it's a really interesting dynamic when you're trying to come to terms with it. So I think as you continue to move forward in the game of what does this look like, and again, we can't really answer that question right now, as we've said, because we're about to face a whole new world. But those are questions that you need to be trying to figure out as hopefully now, and then as we get new stuff, then you can kind of adapt as we go along.
And thinking of Kingpin's a good litmus test too, Ben, because he's always going to do that, right? Yep. That's his leadership. So no matter what secure you're playing on, he's going to count as 2. So how do you handle that when you're kind of thinking of your own crisis or list construction, right?
I'm gonna probably guess that there's gonna be more than one non-pay to flip secure in the new world, right?
Yeah.
So trying to answer those questions now, I think, is a faithful thing to do as we start thinking about June.
Yep. Oh, you also brought up sticky sectors in the pay to flips, right? So pay to flips are interesting, right? Because it's an additional power that you're asking for your team to be able to sort of produce, right, and interact with. Some teams like X-Men, they have first class, right? That lets you just get a free interaction. So that's kind of okay for their game plan. Asgard, for instance, also have the ability to flip that. But if you're not one of those teams, right, and you get your just normal 1 power turn, does a pay to flip make sense for your team, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think you can view value in a few different ways. I am coming around to pay to flips a little more these days. They're risky, but they allow you to have very powerful end of turn last activations where you can get a bunch of points back onto your side. And if you're playing a team that likes to have rotating big impact pieces, right? You can't really afford for them to sit on a point like a back point, for instance, right? You don't want Black Bolt, for instance, to be sitting on a back point somewhere, just guarding something. You want characters, right, with large impact, big attacks, big superpowers, right, to be on the field. The sticky objectives allow you to still have those impacts while not losing the points, right? Because you are, those are yours until they flip them, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, as you think about it, there's also, again, it's hard not to have this conversation and also think about character selection, but there are some characters that need that extra power, right? So if, you have a pay to flip and are trying to grab extracts, you may not be able to have that turn 1 open with a character that you want, because there's so many things you need to do on turn 1, right? And running the risk of going down too many points on round 1 can be super detrimental, right, to what you're trying to do. So having a game plan of this team needs all of its power that it can have on round 1. So I'm going to have 0 pay to flips in my secures is an important thing. Again, trying to figure that out now before June is something that you hopefully can be doing, but trying to figure out the most optimal round 1, is something that a lot of the top tier players do, because Jen, you said it earlier, most games are going to round 3, round 4.
Round 4, 1-5, I would say. Yeah. Round 4, 1-5. Yeah. 3s are actually kind of rare, unless it's a Kingpin Webs situation where they just
I
got
was
put
about
on
to say
those.
you've not you've not been on the receiving end of webs enough where it feels like that happens every time. But you're right. Now, again, you could be a Brave Sentinels player and plan to have 11 power at the end of round 6 so that you get 6 additional victory points. That is an option.
That is an option, but that is beyond the scope of this current discussion, Ben.
I'm just saying. But yeah, thinking about turn 0 is how do I get to round 6, right? It's a silly question to ask yourself, but if you're trying to pull it off, you need to ask yourself, what is the avenue that I get there? It's going to be a little bit harder to do on a squad that or in a crisis selection that is pay to flips, right? Because you need all that power. So again, should you take that card? No, but ifs and buts and coconuts. So,
but
So, in my opinion, all right, hot take here. I think that pay to flip scenarios are actually very good for white teams. Actually,
I don't disagree.
You say wide teams?
White teams, yes.
Thick. He meant thick. Sorry, Ben.
Thick, yeah.
Like glutinous to teams, very, very chewy, chunky. Like, no, just kidding. No, but so very wide teams, right? That are, there's a lot of bodies. Basically, you're looking for teams that would want to have last activation, right? And I think those teams are going to excel quite a bit on pay to flip scenarios. So for listeners out there, does a pay to flip scenario make sense for you? You can either think about it as you have a lot of like elite models that produce a lot of power or extra power to compensate for the pay to flip scenarios, and that could be a tall team that can take out activations but also generate power. Or you can have a wide team, right? That is okay, you're likely to get last activation. You can probably flip a couple points, swing the scenario back in your favor. That's kind of how I look at those. If you, for instance, if you're thinking of a pay to flip, makes sense for you.
Yeah.
And of course, you're thinking of the best pay to flips secure, which is McCran, right?
Which is Deadly Meteors.
Okay, agree to disagree.
Which is Shi'ar. now that we're just naming them.
No, I think you're right, Jin. In if you're trying to leverage the best type of crisis selection for your team, if you think the answer is pay to flips, well, you want as many attempts at that pay to flip as possible. That's why you go wide, right?
Yeah.
If you have 4 characters and you flub a pay to flip, well, again, now it's spaghettios, right? So I'm full of these colloquiums today. So
yep. And also if you have certain characters affiliated, right? I'm thinking about Prowler right now. I'm thinking about the new Omega Sentinel, right? You're starting to see more pay to flip specialists actually. Chosen Abast actually, if he gets a health buff, right? I think you actually will see that guy more on the field as well. And he's in a ton of affiliations as well. That may be one to consider pay to flips, if you have Chosen Abast as an affiliate piece.
Yeah, that's a great shout out. It's one of those things again, as you're trying to think of what is my turn 0 plan to win the game. If it's to score to 16 and not just kill everything, which is, I guess, a way to play a game. You need to think about how am I giving myself the best opportunity to do that. And having 4 models on the table is generally not the best way to do that in terms of scoring opportunities.
Right. And so if you're a team that wants to do 4 models, right, we can say that generally you want the game to be slower, less points on the board, right? So 1, you have enough coverage, right, to interact with the points with 4 bodies. But also you probably will have good attacks, right, in those 4 bodies. That's going to be able to allow you to eke out incremental advantages right throughout the game, and hopefully you win by the end.
Yep. 100%.
Yep.
I agree.
So I think it's a good segue of, I think we've kind of talked about, the shapes Um, Stephen, how do you address what type of characters you bring on certain shapes? I mean, Jin just kind of suggested of, when to take some tall, or less characters, but what's the way that you personally, come up with what characters to bring?
You know, it's such a poignant question for someone who's really tired now.
Got him.
Or just
No, I can answer the question. Don't try to handicap me. So no, okay, like to be fair, like it's all about like speed, right? So like it does boil down to like movement tricks, I think at the end of the day, like depending on what mission you're playing on, right? So like how do I personally do it? Well, I really like B maps, right? So like what I'm looking for, as we kind of mentioned already a little bit, like B maps are kind of like double E's. So like the reason why because like I do think so when you were talking earlier, Ben, too, about like what you like to play on. I don't think you actually talked about the reasons or like how that developed, and I think that's an important conversation, right? Too, when you're talking about crisis selection, is like um, practicing on like all the different missions is heavily important, right? But you do tend to over time, I think, gravitate towards certain missions and like realize that like you might actually be pretty good, and that's actually why it's kind of a just like a random tidbit here, like sometimes like recording your games on long shapes in the casual section can really help you look at if you're not sure what you're good on, just start recording your games, and then over time you might start to see some trends. And I was doing that for a while, and I like was realizing like Infinity and Mad Men were some of my highest, whatever. And then you can start being like, well, why is that? But like, um, the shapes in general, right? Like, so I'll use bees because I like them, and I kind of group Shi'ar, even though it's a Shi'ar whatever princess or whatever the fuck it's called.
The technical name.
Yeah. The pay to flip that's like slightly more ajar. It's a like a mini B, kind of like a Deadline is like a mini D, right? In my mind. But anyways, like I think like for B maps, for example, like I'm always looking kind of at like base size, and like characters who like push themselves, characters who like have like a move in a place, right? Like APOC was like the king of B maps, right, for a while, because he had like the place walk, and then he could like end up on any corner, but like also mid game he had the ability to basically bump double walk, and like on Mad Men at least like pay to flip, right? So I think speed and like I don't want to call them out of activation movement is also very good, but the predictable movement that you have, right? Like that you're going to have player agency over, right? So it's like on a D shape, like having an L move and a bump is like really good because it means in like one go you can still have an action and like end up on another D, right? I'm sure Jin, like that, or like a web swing, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're in the inside of that diamond like shape, like it actually is pretty easy to get around as long as you have like a decent move stat to start with, right? So
yeah, so like the more rotational maps, which Bs are different than Ds, obviously, but like I do think that Bs and Ds have this similar idea when you're looking at characters, which is like, well, it's not just the like M, small M L on the card. You're also really realistically kind of looking for a little bit more there. You know what I mean? To some extent, right? Not with every character, but you definitely, I think, also want to kind of lean on and like, okay, this guy's my like kind of rotating character, or like late game I can like grab the extracts and like rotate to one side, right?
yeah,
Or early game if you can do that, right? But
yeah, depending on where things are placed, right? Yeah. And that's gonna be interesting because like when the new shapes come out, like it's not bad for people to just like, it's like, hey, put the crisis down and sort of like look at where your guys can go in one movement and see if they can start interacting, right, with certain objectives or not, for instance. So like, if something's not quite on the midline and something's just like a one or two like over the edge towards your deployment, guess what? A small base long mover is able to interact with those, which is really really nice for like opening plays and whatnot. I think that's something that's worth doing. Like no matter what crisis shape rotation that we're in, is like just try out all the shapes and just like on a like initial level, just see where people can move, and how much movement does it take to get around to things and whatnot.
Yeah, and
So
that harkens back to like Ben's point about like I think when you're doing any kind of like, because this series is about like how to play better, right? I think practicing like your turn zero is really hugely important, right? But on your own without an opponent, you can like take squads, do the things Jin's suggesting, but also like create openings and then re-rack and then create openings with your whole 10, you can just swap in and out characters and just like see where they can go, see what you can do, and then start creating like a strong opening without an opponent there, right? Because
yeah,
your turn one's pretty much the only turn where there's very little. Usually, there's very little like opponent interaction if you play it correctly, right?
yeah,
For the most part.
yeah. We talked about this on the last time, right? It's like trying to like envision your round one, right, with these characters, and just having the right crisis like uh let's see, objective tokens, right, in the right places, and then like building a squad that is able to leverage their movement or any other traits that they have, right, that will like take advantage of those things.
Yeah, and I guess like an example, because like I like to use concrete examples, right? So I play a lot of Cabal historically, and there's like two that come to mind that for me on B shapes are like really solid characters, as like outside of like your leaders or your safe grabs or whatever, and that's like Wrecking Crew and Warriors 3 actually. Oh no, not just Wrecking Crew, not Warriors 3. But Warriors 3 isn't terrible because they have an out of activation movement, but Wrecking Crew has that. Rhino, I guess, is a better example. Rhino and Wrecking Crew, because they have that kind of like slide, and then they have like they're on a large base. They have like a slide, and then they have the ability to like either walk and hit or walk in like or double walk or whatever, and they can very reliably get to the other side. So, I don't even think you have to be on the inside of the objective with Wrecking Crew to get to the other side on a B if you slide walk.
Yeah, probably not actually. So, but again, that's what testing is for, right? So, like, whenever the shapes are finalized, you can start seeing it's like, hey, if I want to go have Wrecking Crew go from this side of the board to the other side of the board, while interact with both objectives, like, what does it look like there?
Yeah, and I think like an important part of thinking about crisis selection too is like not like when you're thinking about movement and things characters can do, also think about like inside outside of objectives. I remember a long time ago when I first started playing, like this is just a reminder to, or maybe some new information for newer players, but like test out things like where you can go like after you get your mission stack down, like maybe even play a second round where you're just moving and see like from the inside of an objective where can I go, from the outside of an objective where can I go, from because it's really important, because like I think a lot of misplays when you're first starting are not anticipating like kind of where your model can actually reach, so I think it's really really important for you to know kind of even turn two, like moving from 1 to 2, where your reach is, right, or your threat projection, or what as Ben likes to call it, because he only likes to smack things. So it's all about threat projection.
It's all about threat projection. Yeah.
No, but I mean, to some extent, that's absolutely accurate. And threat projection can also mean like mission playing, right, or rotating.
Super. Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Jin.
No. This is your specialty. Go ahead.
Well, no, I think you did an episode a long time ago, sharing on how a small base long mover directly in the middle of the board can get to any midline extract with a double walk, and so it creates some opening challenges for your opponent if I don't know, if you have an entire squad of all small base long movers and you just put them all in the middle of the deployment zone. You're like, I have no idea who's going where, right? Well, you don't know that unless you've actually seen that on the table yourself, right? Of, hey, I can do this. And just knowing what your placement of your characters can do. Echo, she has wall crawler, right? So she can get to some places that Baron Zemo struggles to get to, right? All of that matters when you're talking about what type of characters. I think what we haven't talked about yet, which is interesting, and how this affects what characters you bring and sometimes the crisis shape, is now we're in a world where we're seeing more terrain on boards, right? Because of the throw changes and how that works. So we see a lot of overcrowded, I shouldn't say overcrowded, but crowded tables with lots of terrain features. So Wall Crawler has even more value, right? This is why, I mean, Echo is a good character, but she's just getting even more value because of her ability to wall crawl. Because now you can just ignore that. You can ignore some of these shenanigans where, you have a small base, medium, or a medium mover or medium base. There, I talk for a living. Don't worry. Medium base, small mover. There it is. Who is a size 2 or a size 3 and can't get over this building. Like well, crud. Now I've got to think about my landing zones. What can fit? How does this affect models that like to push and or pull? It's something that I think about when I bring Mayor Fisk and Wedding Party. I'm trying to bring characters that can have a lot of push effects, but if there's more terrain on the board, well, you can kind of body block some of those things or position yourself in meaningful ways. I think that all comes into factor, and you've got to kind of try your best to quickly analyze that right when you get to the table, which I think sometimes is a daunting task for newer players.
Yep. And that would be a preview into our roster selection episode Up Your Game.
Yeah.
At some point.
Wait, have we done that?
No, we haven't done that, Steven. That's why it's a preview.
It's a preview. Preview. It's called foreshadowing. Yeah,
so let's dial it back again to Crisis, right? So I want to talk about the special effects of Crisis, right? And how they might influence your squad selection. So for instance, like, currently we have hammers, right? That's stackable. It's able to, give you additional dice. You got Terrigen canisters that slow your roll down, and you also, possibly get poisoned from it. There's the mutant senators, right? Mutant extremist target senators. So the senator tokens, you only can move once, like with the move action.
Wait, that's what the full name of that. Oh, wow.
I think I'm right. I could be wrong, listeners.
No, you're right. It's mutant extremist target U.S. senators. I just haven't read the full title in years.
They're
Mystique is the bad guy. Don't make me go down this road, please.
So, Mystique bad guy aside, okay? Where do you besmirch Freedom Force? It's got freedom in the title.
Don't get me started, Jen.
But so if you want to, let's say you're playing a team you want to score out, and you're thinking, oh, senators are a great idea to take. Well, can you compensate for the fact that you're only allowed one move action while you have one of these tokens, right? So if you don't have a web swing or some sort of place effect or some sort of an attack or superpower that has a built-in advance into it that doesn't say it's a move action, then you might actually be very hampered on your ability to rotate and get away from danger. For instance, if you were to take this extract, for instance. So even though it's a high scoring one, right, you need to consider some other factors, right, for it.
Yeah. On that same note, too, another great example is Terrigen, right? Are you going to get severely punished if you get that poison? And if you're small moving everywhere, is that going to really hurt your game plan? It's the same idea, just a different mission.
Yeah, and also also would you take Terrigen canisters because your team maybe interacts with poison in a very meaningful way? So
like Hydra or something,
right? You have Hydra, or let's say you just have Abomination, right, in your list. If he's if these characters staples, right? If you have Omega Red Abomination, does an extract that just randomly gives up poison, right? Is that now something you're interested in? Even though you maybe are a high scoring team, it gives you a debilitating effect between the smaller movement the enemy characters get and the potential poison. Does that make sense? Maybe yes, maybe no. For instance.
Yeah, I think Scrolls too is a really good example of planning for character selection. Really thinking about that turn 0, because you have to assume the worst, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if I get pushed? What does that look like for me? So that's where Namor or something, or an L mover on the home scroll become super useful, right? So that's another example of from the get go you even pointed out, Ben, too, what if the terrain's bad as well, and you're bringing scrolls in your list? You got to think maybe I don't take Zemo here, maybe I take Echo or something.
Yeah. Trying to understand the intricacies of, the stacking effects, as Jen is saying, of what your extract is trying to do, and how does this best benefit your affiliation that you're trying to bring. Some are going to really just be unaffected. Sometimes you're wanting to do things because maybe this is particularly strong into the meta that you're going to. Maybe you're going into a crowd that has a bunch of Kingpin players, and you're just like, well, I'm bringing all pay to flips, get wrecked, Kingpin, right? Those are important questions to ask yourself as you're creating your roster of, what does this look like for me? What does this look like for my team? What am I trying to do? All of those types of things. And again, if you're just taking it for either the threat value and or the shape, you're missing out on some pretty neat combos. One of my favorite things, I love taking Mayor Fisk with Winter Guard. What if, most affiliations don't love being stunned, right? Go figure, right? And what if your affiliation just says, I don't care. And you can get rid of, status conditions. Those are all important things. This is why I love Demons Downtown. I think Winter Guard was okay on Demons Downtown, but I loved leveraging the fact of, I'm going to stand on this point because I know I can eventually get rid of this Incinerate. You have to stand on this point, and you may not be able to get rid of Incinerate as easily as I can. And I really appreciate the Hydra shout out of, there are some really cool combos that aren't just affiliation, but character focused as well. Continuing to shout out Abomination. There's some neat stuff. Omega Red could also do that, by the way. So,
yeah, for sure.
Our sweet baby boy Omega Red.
No one cares. It's all about A-Bomb or Hydra or whoever you said.
Listeners, you know from our Cabal episode that I gush quite a bit about Omega Red. So
yeah, he's a cool model. I still haven't painted mine, but very true.
Steven, I also want to talk about how midline centric is your crisis spread, right? So
mine in general? Are you asking me personally?
Well, I mean, if you want to be personal, sure. But I was thinking more abstractly, like for any sort of someone that's building their list for the first time. It's like, hey, do I have a lot of tanky pieces that are actually okay sitting on the midline? Or are they a bunch of very squishy web warriors, for instance, that maybe don't want to be on the midline? So maybe that will also influence, because when objectives are on the midline, you have to imagine that's going to be a relatively aggressive game, right? Because there's going to be a higher amount of interactions because, walking and shooting somebody on the midline is something a lot of characters can do, I think, for instance, if you're deployed straight across from a midline extract, a small base medium move with a range 3 attack can attack somebody that's on a midline objective.
Or a Dracula with an L move.
Yep.
Can attack someone that's on a midline objective.
Oh, can he? Man, that is scary.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think that's something, just personally, I don't know, your game gets different, you focus on different things at different times. And I do think for me recently, I've really started thinking about midline stuff, pretty extensively, and extract grabbing. I'm not that I didn't before, but it's more technical now in my head, when I'm picking my squad or looking at missions for a squad, right? So a good example is the one that we see all the time currently is inhuman weapons, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all midline objectives and you have to have a game plan. So if you're going to bring that in your squad, you're either thinking do I need a safe grab here, right? Namor, Angela, or ASM, right? Who can medium base, long move, get you to the midline and allow you another action, right? Or alternatively, do I bring someone who can really punish someone who's going to grab that, right?
Yeah.
So these are all things I think that you put it very, very well. You've got to think about midline extracts, right? They exist in the game a lot of times. They're kind of everywhere, they're in every mission. So having a plan if you're bringing one with a midline. They're not everywhere. Not every single mission has them, or not every single extract has them. But like, I do think if you're gonna, in your 5 or whatever, it's still. I'm assuming it's still going to be 5 crisis going forward that you pick. So in the 5 that you bring, if you have midline objectives, like, and you choose that, make sure you have a plan for that, right? Like that can be I mean, the problem is right now, I guess, in the meta, is seemingly tanky characters a year ago who could grab midline extracts just get like deleted. So yeah, it's not just webs anymore. So, but yeah, that's like definitely like I think a central concern when you're like kind of like deciding on your extract selection is like if there is a midline extract there in any one of your missions, like how are you going to deal with that? What characters?
Yeah.
In your affiliation specifically first are allowing you to like have good play on those.
So the other thing is that not only midline extracts, but you have to think about, since there's more midline secures now. So you can either like have the first person that you put on one of those, right, is going to be in a lot of danger, right? Especially if people have counter deployed well. So like we talked about, people can just walk up and punch somebody, right? Potentially, like that's on a midline secure. So you have to make sure that like does your team actually have ways to mitigate damage, reduce damage, heal damage, or have movement tricks in response to like being attacked, right? So that they can like, potentially like get out of there if they need to, and that applies to both if you have like an extract or you're just trying to keep the character safe that was on a secure.
Yeah. I just got something popped in my head for like newer players listening to this. Being someone myself who's constantly kind of like working on his game. Don't worry. I know like in these episodes we talk about a lot. This just popped in my head to like give like a public service announcement. Yes, what we're talking about is a lot to think about. But it does get easier over time when you start to internalize some of the habits, and I think, like when Ben and I play, for example, Ben's like, we're just going to make yourself ask these general questions so they're just like second nature, right? So it's just practice, right? Because like, I think when you vocalize something in some of these episodes, it can be overwhelming. And I just want to say, you're going to be fine.
You're going to be fine, because how we got here is by us getting our asses whooped several times for making several mistakes. It's like, oh, this is why this happens. So we should think about why and how. Therefore, we can either revenge how do we do it ourselves, or how to
a whole month of King T slapping you around.
Listen, we can only retrench this trauma so many times, Steven.
I know, but it's so bad.
Well, and to echo that, right? It's so important that I think, especially as miniature gamers, one of the primary modes of learning is doing, right? You got to see it. I remember back in the day, this is before either of your guys' time, so I can pull the old guy card, the old Thanos tractor beam in the first couple of years, where he was mind space, and it was just he would hop cosmic portal and then mind stone somebody who was made the mistake of extract grabbing the midline. I remember when I was first playing the game, I was like, yeah, Captain America, he'll never die. He's the he's the bestest boy, he's super tanky, everything's fine. Oh, my Captain America is in his deployment zone. That's bad. Right. And that had to happen to me maybe 2 or 3 times before I learned that was going to keep happening. So you just learn from your mistakes, and you learn by seeing it. So yeah, don't ever beat yourself up. This series is intended to throw a lot of stuff at you, right? You're going to catch as much as you can, and just go with it. It's not the end of the world. I think one of the other important things I find it important to say, losing games doesn't devalue you as a person.
Amen.
Hey.
So, unless your name is Steven.
I do struggle with that, though. Listeners, it is honestly something that I've had to ask myself a lot of questions about. So
this is why we talk about it, right? Losing can provide an actual space of what I like to call teachable moments, and it's a really important aspect of life. please don't hold yourself, again, if you're really trying to up your game and get better and, constantly top table, all those things, along the way, you're going to lose. And that's really okay. It's trying to find those patterns within yourself of, what are some of your hangups of what you're missing. And one of the reasons why this series exists is because there's a lot more work into Turn Zero than people put effort in. And you can learn a lot about what your game style by doing that. For example, I think the next point that I think we can talk about that I don't know if a lot of people even conceptualize until it's maybe a little too late is kind of understanding flanks and kind of zones on the board. Jin, I know that's something that you really thrive about. Can you talk about just how you envision and how you think about that?
Sure. So when you have flanks, right? Like the way I kind of think about it is like, it's like, okay, how many extracts and secures, mostly secures, I should say, how close are to each other? And then is there like a generalized zone of like, here's like where a lot of game is going to happen in this zone, right? So V shapes are such a good class examples where I can say there's like two general zones that are going to occur right during the game. So on the left flank, there's going to be two secures that are, not that far from each other, right? So if you're in the inside between those two secures, it doesn't take much for you to interact with opponents with like long range attacks or a charge or something, and then there's, same thing on the right side, right? Because there's two distinct zones, you can kind of then feel like, okay, is my squad actually really strong by breaking up into two different like smaller squads, right? To sort of interact with this game state. And if that is, then that means that you actually probably have a really strong B team, for instance.
I call them double E's now at this point.
I mean, honestly, not a bad way to think about it, right? Like like they're kind of like two E's but the option is there so that, like once you have like a lead on extracts, right? And that's really important concept to talk about as well, where like getting ahead on extracts, like either if let's say you got 3 out of the 4 extracts or you got 3 out of the 5 extracts, right? Does often dictate where like people are going to want to go to try to like get those extracts back, right, to the other side, to the other team. And so you can potentially, like, let's say in a B shape where there's 2 zones, right? If you can get some extracts from one side to the other, right? Now the majority of the extracts are on one side, then this 2 zone game now it collapses down more to like a 1 zone game, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about Bs are like such a really good example of flanks in MCP because they're clear, right? They're more clear than any other mission type, I would argue. But I don't know where I was going with that. They're just clear.
I mean, yes, true.
Sorry, listeners.
That is a true statement. It's a true statement.
Indeed.
It does the thing. Bad. It does the flank thing.
I had a like profound thing to say after that, but like most of my sentences this episode, they just like tater off into nothingness.
You just go indubitably. You just throw an indubitably in there and you'll be fine. Yeah.
Indubitably.
So I think that's interesting, as we're talking about this, of recognizing zones of where, trying to anticipate where's the action going to happen in this game. And can the squad that you take dictate it in different ways? So, trying to recognize what you're bringing and also trying to look across the table and seeing, well, what is it that my opponent is trying to bring or might be able to bring? What do I know, about them and that affiliation, and trying to anticipate in round 0, looking after, the crisis has been set up of, all right, on round 1, this is roughly where some characters are going to be. On round 2, I can kind of think that maybe characters should be around here. One of the reasons why I love Montesi is, and some of those small odd number extracts is, well, now if I win prio and I have a safe grab, I dictate where the game is going to be, right? Many of the people who are familiar with me know that I have a Namor problem. I love Namor. And I love Namor because he helps dictate where the game is going to be, especially if I win Prio. Because I can safe grab something, and now it's Jin's problem that I'm going to have 2 extracts on my side of the board. He's got to figure out, well, how do I now get to Ben's side of the board? And conversely, trying to anticipate, well, if that happens, with my opponent, how am I going to deal with that? Well, having a long moving charge model that has flight, all of those things helps me realize that on turn 2, now Namor can get where he needs to be, so on and so forth. So those are important questions to think of flanks dictating the pace of the game. Where is it going to be? What side of the board? How can you use terrain as your advantage? I think all really matter. And again, being able to sit down on the table and trying to hash that out before any physical models are being placed is, I think, really important.
And I think that's important too, like when we're talking about building out your crisis, right? So if there's I would start, I guess, like tips or tricks, I guess, like it's always really useful to start with what you're dealing with affiliated, right? So if you're seeing if there's no, I guess a really good example is like, say your faction doesn't have a safe grab, which is like most, right? in the game. Maybe, and before we talk about characters, I mean, they're so intertwined, but it's like, if you're parsing it out to just like selecting missions, right, in your turn 0, like when you're building a list, if you don't have any safe grabs, maybe you start with this fact, like, okay, I don't have any safe grabs. So maybe we like look at some different missions first, and maybe I play better on those, right? At least when you're like trying to fit an affiliation into a mission stack, right? Because that's like super important, right? Like, because if like Ben, you splash Namor in almost all your lists. It's a
darn
splash.
Right I do. Darn right I do.
So you're
a
like
lot of problems.
Yeah, you're like forcing that ability to play well on those missions. But like, say you don't want to do that. Like maybe you don't like mermen in diapers or something. but like I do think it's like really really important to like start off, because we're still trying, at least, I mean, it's everything all at once, right? But like we are trying to talk about like how you evaluate your crisis for your own team, like for your own list. And I think an important thing to do is be like, okay, how successful, I mean, I think we've probably talked about this over and over again already, but like, how do you successfully like foretell like where the action's going, and is that action, like that kind of prediction, good for my team, right? Do I like the fact that like I'm going to have the ability for, because what Ben's talking about is essentially like Namor safe grabs, comes back, and then his opponent has to walk into his bunker. Yep. And so can your team do that? Like, Shield's a good example here. Like, A, Namor's affiliated, and B, like they create bunkers like it's hot, like, so like for a Shield game plan, you're like, I absolutely want like a Montesi, or like you can start with Montesi. I think also like Fs aren't out of the realm of possibility for Shield, because they, your highest threat is like a 5, right? So and you have Nick Fury, and things like that. So
yeah, in a situation where there's just a single midline objective, right? If you have the ability to have like the Shield agents, right, that are like they can dictate where they drop stuff, or you have Namor that can give you a safe grab. There's multiple avenues, right, for you to get that extract advantage, right? And then backlands are usually relatively safe, because like either they have to dive that point, and Shield is very okay with you diving to that point, because they will just bring to bear all their firearms into you as a result of that, or you just leave them alone, right? And then they're able to just pick up their stuff like very safely.
Yeah, and I think like even to that point too, like even more basic than anything is like when you're picking missions, like do you want even or odd? Do you want to create an extract discrepancy, right? Correct. Or do you want to score more evenly? And I know we definitely talked about it at the beginning, but like as a a reminder, because we're about an hour in case you forgot, like me, constantly, like that's an important question in list building, right? Like, do I want to create this kind of like disparity in parity or whatever it's called? So
right, the asymmetrical like number, right? Like here,
odd or even, right?
Odd or even, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of like tools, right? So if you have like unique ways to get extracts that require a lot less exposure, right, to your team to do so. So like Namor, for instance, like, again, is a very easy example of just like, I'll get a thing and I don't expose myself to any danger, right? Or, let's say you have like even Widow, right? I've been playing a lot of Widow 3 threat recently. She'll grab a midline, and because she has stealth and the ability to do parting shot, oftentimes opponents will only get one attack into her before she gets the parting shot away into safety, and that's not a safe grab like Namor, but there's tech on the team that you're able to use to be able to still extracts in a way that's not as risky as just standing there, right? For whatever attacks come their way.
Or Gambit, another good example is Gambit in APOC, right? As death.
Yep.
Especially, as Ben has pointed out to me several times. But yeah.
Toad is, one who gets splashed a whole bunch, right? There's lots of ways. And again, it's hard to talk about purely crisis stuff without talking about characters, because how you interact with these crises is going to be with the characters, right?
Yeah.
As we talked about at the top of the episode, of recognizing, what do you as the person want to play? Do you want to, punch? Do you want to score out and try to, win your game in 30 minutes? That's, I think, for me, the first core question, because that's going to lead you to certain affiliations over others. Now, I think we've also talked, there's no real wrong way to do it, as long as you keep trying different things. But yeah, it's important to know there's often more ways to deal with an issue than just one way. It's what, and as more characters come out, as more different types of crisis come out, there's going to be more answers to some of the more prevailing questions. That's, I think, a strength of MCP. So if it's not working right away, don't give up hope. Sometimes, games are weird and that just, happens that way. But know that there's often different ways to kind of, figure out an issue. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that unless you guys have more to talk about, that was a good starting to wind down.
This is going to be
Jim's like, I want to go another hour.
So I want your guys' takes. What do you think is a good kind of characteristics you want to look for in your affiliation if you think you're good at source extracts?
Wide is my solution, I guess, right now. Just having like cheap bodies. So like I like, wide webs with like a double Wong ham for me would be like something interesting. But I know there's other solutions. I do think that is one solution, is to go extra wide on something, so you can kind of sacrifice a body.
Yeah, because these are extracts you're going to get for one round. You have to hold on to it for dear life, and then it's just going to dissipate, right, for the next round. So
yeah,
it's like characters that either keep themselves safe, can go in and out, I think are like really important.
Or characters who want to be in the opponent's face and can inherently, like, if you double, like, so I'm imagining, like two flanks here, like with like two charge characters on either side, where you're like, okay, cool, you pick up that one, I'm going to charge in with Zemo and pick up your source, right? So like really aggressive movement characters, for example, could also like play into those missions.
Right. So that's for Jailbreak, but now we also see in the preview that there seems to be a midline source as well. So that's going to be different, right? So like, yes, Zemo is actually really great for for Jailbreak, but you're going to have a different kind of character that you want probably for the 16 threat, I think, source.
Are you alluding to maybe the other Zemo, Jin, here?
No, that man still cannot take a punch. I don't know if he's going to get help. I'm going to assume he gets health buff, but
you've talked a lot about the mechanic before for source extracts. So.
Yes. Like I said, yes. Like, NASCAR Steve and Zemo 2, I will always say they have an interesting effect with it because they can get extra movement and not worry about it for hampering them for the rest of the game. So, but beyond that though, like, I think it's going to be interesting to see like what characters end up like excelling as source extract.
What is the new one called? I'm trying to find it on Cerebro.
The name was very blurry, so I do not know. So, unfortunately,
is it up on Jarvis yet?
I thought Eric actually did a little thing for us.
He did, but like that was a long time ago, and I don't still have that. Whatever. Okay, I can't find it. They have the secure up on Jarvis.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just curious if they had the extract here. It doesn't look like it.
Well, listeners, just listen to this episode again in June. And
Oh, they do. Surprise assault. I mean, technically, we don't even know if this is going to make it to the rotation because, like, they did this last year, right? Where they had showed new missions and some of them didn't even make it to competitive play.
Correct. Yeah. So we're just assuming, like, for this thought exercise, like, what if like surprise assault actually does make it to the rotation, for instance?
Yeah, it's an interesting shape, right? I mean, I haven't put it down on the table yet, but it looks like a large base can fit between the zigzags.
Maybe. Yeah. The most important thing is that since these are kind of like just off the center line, I think a small base long mover, right, is able to get to them in one go.
Yeah. I guess if like turn one, you're just like running up, grabbing one, running back.
Yeah,
would be like a play pattern.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, and so I think like any sort of like long movers, right, are going to be kind of really
or Toad.
Or Toad. Yeah, or Toad. Yeah. I think those are going to be really clutch for source extracts, right? So if your affiliation has access to a lot of like long movement or Toads, like that sort of those kind of characters, maybe sources might be interesting for you to like try to take a look. Intent Mystique, Freedom Force, Ben's favorite. No, just kidding.
Triggered. It's okay.
Triggered.
Yeah,
that was before my time, so that went over my head. But yeah, I guess. Go ahead, Jen.
No, I mean like that's all I want to talk about.
Yeah, you go hop on that train. No one hears it, but us. But
yeah.
For our listeners who get the final version of this product, usually there's a nice train sound going behind Jin, so I just assume he's a hobo going to his next MCP.
Yeah, you can't. Jin can't stay in one spot. He's got to be in New York. He's got to be in New York, New Hampshire. He's got to be.
He rides the rails to get to the next MCP.
Yeah,
I got my fingerless gloves, my patchy like pants, with the stick with the bag on it.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, so I guess just to kind of wrap everything up too, like so crisis selection obviously very important, and I think the main takeaway or general theme here is like do some like practicing with movement, right? I think that's like a super important thing when you're starting to think about these things. Probably the number one rule is like put your guys down on a table and just like see where they can go, and that'll kind of dictate like some starting points as to like what your team like succeeds on, right?
Yep.
If I had to sum this all up into like one or two sentences, it would be like movement.
Yeah. Like how fast do you want the game to be, and how much movement can your team do, right? And that sort of like should dictate like what crisis you select. And you should consider threat levels if they're like a make or break point. Like maybe your affiliation has a really bad 16, so maybe you can skip the 16 straight up just because of the list building constraints that it might make, for instance.
Yeah, I mean 20 is also an interesting breakpoint too, because it's like how much stuff do you want your opponent to bring, right? At some level. But yeah, like because the like bigger guys do better at like 20 threat, like the generally higher threat models. So like, do you also want to like deal with that, So, but I think the how your team plays on a thing is more important than the threat level,
Yeah. Most of the time, I think once you get to the actual selecting of people in your affiliation and in like what splashes you want to make your overall roster, I think for the most part, between 16 to 20, I think you should most time be able to make a good squad in any threat levels, as long as your roster is, constructed with flexibility in mind for those.
And that'll be the next episode, kind of. So stay tuned. Next time on.
We did it.
Yeah, Ben, any last kind of thoughts?
No, I think we covered it. Just don't play White Warriors or you're the villain.
Okay. Not subjective at all, but here we go. Alrighty. So as per usual, you can join our Discord below. The link is below, is what I meant by that. You can email us at aliveon1@gmail.com. We have a link to RSMP where Jin talks about deployment, which I do think we are doing an episode on as well, just a verbal one at some point. And what?
Oh, and if you want more visual components to a lot of topics we talked about, check out episode 3 and 4 of of Red Room training, because I talked about secure crisis and also extract crisis and a lot of concepts. And so with more visuals than this podcast.
Yeah, so you listen to this first, boost our numbers, and go over and boost RSMPs. But no, it's a really great. I mean, Jen, you constantly get compliments on those videos. So yeah, they're really really solid videos. Especially if you're a visual learner, which this is kind of a visual game to some extent. So they're definitely a useful tool in conjunction with us just kind of talking to you on your commute. You can leave a review on Apple and Spotify or wherever you prefer to listen. Our affiliate our affiliate link to Huge Miniatures is below, and Godspeed Magic. All right, thank you. Bye.